Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are putting on our armor, fully prepared for that moment when it just shatters.
And you're left scrambling around in your underwear.
Exactly. We are diving into a game that is just synonymous with generational frustration and legendary precision. Capcom's 1985 arcade creation, Makaimura, or as most of the world knows it, Ghosts and Goblins.
Right, and the initial concept is so simple. It's a fantasy setup that's as old as time. You control the knight, Arthur, and you're venturing into the demon world, the Makai, to rescue the kidnapped Princess Guinevere.
But it was so much more than that. It wasn't just difficult, it felt, I don't know, psychologically demanding.
It really was.
So our mission today is to kind of peel back the layers of that difficulty, because the game's reputation is, well, it's a bit of a paradox. The arcade original was brutally hard, yes, but it was also known for being meticulously balanced.
Meticulously, yeah. That's the key word.
So we need to understand the mechanics that forced you to master it, and then we have to analyze that notorious Famicom port, which is where the reputation for chaotic, almost unfair difficulty really comes from.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start with the most defining thing in the whole game, Arthur's armor system.
It's so iconic. It functions as way more than just a health bar. It's like this ticking psychological timer.
It is. You start off with your armor, one hit, just one, and it flies off. Arthur's left exposed in those little boxers.
It's such a loud, immediate declaration of failure.
And it served two functions. First, it instantly tells you, the player, hey, you are one hit away from death. But second, it sets up the punishment.
The second hit.
That second hit, when you're naked, that's a full miss. Arthur just crumbles into a pile of bones. But what kills you more often than the damage itself is the knockback.
The forced recoil. It's such a key feature, and it stays throughout the whole series. It's what really separates this game from other platformers.
Exactly. When Arthur gets hit, he gets jolted backward a pretty significant distance. So if you are anywhere near a ledge, maybe crossing a narrow bridge, or trying a precise jump.
Or one of those tiny rising platforms.
Oh, those are the worst. That knockback is an immediate death sentence. It just sends you plunging into the abyss. It's not the enemy that kills you, it's the pit the knockback pushes you into.
So the designers were basically weaponizing the level itself. The platforming is already tough, and knockback just turns every high platform into this pressure cooker.
It forces you to think about every single encounter, even with a tiny zombie. Not just in terms of defense, but positioning. You have to ask, where will I land if I get clipped?
And if the answer is in a spike pit, your whole strategy has to change.
Right, and that terror is just amplified by Arthur's famously restrictive movement.
Yeah, that jump. Was there a design reason for making his jump trajectory completely fixed? What were they going for with that?
Well, that fixed jump is arguably the core of the arcade's balanced difficulty. Arthur's jump is short, and once you commit, that's it. You cannot adjust the trajectory at all.
You can turn around mid-air, but that's it. You can't slow down or change your arc.
Nope. Which means every single jump has to be calculated perfectly. You have to anticipate enemy movements before you even leave the ground.
That lack of mid-air control is so radical compared to, well, almost every game that came after it. Most games give you some kind of safety net.
And the intention here was clearly to demand preparation over reaction. If you rush your jump, you fail. If you run straight off an edge, he just drops vertically. The controls themselves are tight and responsive, but the limitations on the character are immense.
So you can't blame the controls. You can only blame yourself for not mastering it.
Exactly. And that mastery is really put to the test when you realize you have to do the whole thing twice.
Right. 7 stages, but clearing the game once, it doesn't count.
No, you need 2 full play cycles, a 2cc, to get the true ending. If you somehow manage to beat the Great Demon King on your first run, the game basically mocks you.
It says it was all an illusion created by Satan, and bam, you're right back at stage 1.
Often with increased difficulty. Faster enemies, more projectiles, it's brutal.
The psychological whiplash of that, finally beating this impossible game, only to be told, just kidding, do it again. It's an incredible way to extend playtime.
It really reinforces the hopeless feeling of the Makai, the demon world itself. You thought you won. Think again. The only way out is through. Twice.
So to survive this double loop, Arthur's got a few tools. He has 5 types of projectiles, starting with the spear. How critical is it to pick the right weapon?
Oh, it's crucial. The weapons all have different advantages. The dagger is usually the fan favorite for experts because it's fast, so you can get 3 on screen at once.
So it's great for damage per second.
Exactly. The axe penetrates enemies, but it's slow. The torch has that parabolic arc, which is great for certain enemies on the ground. And then Then there's the cross.
The infamous cross. But how do you even get the weapon you need? If it's just random, that kind of goes against that whole balanced difficulty thing.
It's semi-random. The sources say the system have a predictable element to it, especially in the arcade version. Weapons drop from pots left by certain enemies.
Okay.
And he was often the sixth small, infinitely spawning enemy that would carry a pot. So high-level players learned how to manipulate the screen, how to farm for specific weapons.
So they could force the game to give them a dagger or, more importantly, the cross before a tough part?
That's right. It shows the game was designed for deep study, but the mandatory nature of the cross, that's where the balance threatens to break, even in the arcade version.
How so?
The cross is mandatory to fight the final boss in Stage 7. If you get all the way to the end of Stage 6 and beat that boss without the cross equipped, the game sends you back to Stage 5.
Wait, you get sent back 2 entire stages just because the game didn't give you the right item? That sounds less like mastery and more like praying to the RNG gods.
It's the single biggest point of contention in the original design. The game demands flawless execution, but your final progression hinges on a random drop.
And the cross itself isn't even that great for general use. Right?
It's terrible for it. It has a very short range, but it has one vital property. It's the only weapon that can destroy most incoming enemy projectiles. Except, of course, the final boss's fireballs.
So the designer forces you to use this difficult, short-range weapon for the final fight, and you have to rely on luck to even get it. It's a huge gatekeeping system.
Absolutely. And while the overseas versions changed it to a shield icon for censorship reasons, the frustrating random drop requirement stayed exactly the same.
Okay, we have to talk about the specific enemy that I think ruined the childhoods of an entire generation.
Yeah.
The Red Arremer.
Oh, yeah.
It shows up right in the middle of Stage 1 and immediately tells you that you're in for a bad time.
The Red Arremer is a pure wall. Its tactics are what make it so nightmarish. It's fast, it's incredibly durable, and it just refuses to fight fair.
It evades your attacks, flies around, harasses you with feints and projectiles.
And it pursues you relentlessly. You can't just run past it easily. You have to stop and fight, which eats up the clock. It completely disrupts the game's flow.
And this is where we get that incredible piece of development gossip. The story behind this creature's name.
It's one of the best. The Red Arremer was named after the game's main programmer, Toshio Arima.
You'd think that would be a huge compliment, naming an iconic enemy after a key member of the team.
You would think. But no, the source suggests the character looked a bit like him. But the real story is that the staff created this incredibly irritating character as a form of retaliation.
Retaliation? Why?
Because Mr. Rima was apparently constantly getting angry and flushed. His face was frequently red.
No way. So they designed the ultimate gaming pest, made it red and angry, and named it after the programmer who kept yelling at them.
That is high-level workplace venting right there. And it's just an enduring legacy of office passive aggression. But the character became so famous it got its own spin-off series. It even showed up as a final boss in other games.
The highest honor a digital caricature of an angry programmer can get.
So now we have to turn to the version of the game that really cemented the idea of Makaimura being utterly broken and unfair. The 1986 Famicom port.
Yeah, this distinction is crucial. The arcade was hard by design. The Famicom version, it sounds like it was hard by accident.
Pretty much. Our sources call it a degraded game, a wreckage.
Right.
And to their credit, the developers at Micronics fit the whole game on the cartridge. But the quality and stability just suffered enormously.
How so? What was degraded?
The movement was jerky, the scrolling was choppy, the music was low fidelity. It all just felt unstable.
But the real sin was mechanical, not just cosmetic.
Oh, absolutely. The most devastating downgrade was removing a crucial technique from the arcade. The rapid-fire trick.
What was that?
In the arcade, if you input these tiny micro movements while shooting, you could cancel the animation and fire much faster. It dramatically increased your damage output.
So the skill ceiling for experts was just completely cut off in the home version.
Precisely. That little trick let you deal with durable enemies like the Red Arremer quickly. Without it, those fights on the Famicom became these agonizingly slow wars of attrition. It just fundamentally changed the game's pacing.
And as if that wasn't enough, they added new negative items just to trick you. That feels malicious.
It adds a layer of chaos that the arcade's strict design just didn't have. The Famicom port had fake items, like the fake king statue or frog king.
Right, it looks almost exactly like the helpful item, but it turns you into a slow, weak frog.
And there was a fake Yashichi, a score item, that would actually reduce your time limit instead of giving you points.
So the game is actively baiting you into a timeout just to pad the difficulty.
And it gets worse. The Famicom port introduced completely illogical weapon resistances for bosses that didn't exist in the arcade. Well, unicorns became resistant to the cross. The dragon resists the spear. Satan resists the spear and the axe.
So what was the point of that?
It forced players to rely almost exclusively on the dagger, since it was the only weapon with no boss resistances. It just destroyed any strategic choice you had.
And it made those final stages where you desperately need the cross for projectile defense even harder because you couldn't use it effectively against some of the bosses along the way.
It's a strategic trap. The mandatory weapon is also sometimes the wrong weapon.
So looking back, it's really clear that the Famicom port, with its jerky movement, removed techniques and malicious items. That's the version that gave Makaimura its reputation for terrifying, unstable difficulty.
It's the difference between beating a game that demands perfection and just wrestling with a game that demands luck to overcome its own flaws. The pacing was a mess, too. They added this slow, unskippable lives display screen after every death.
It just slowed down the whole brutal repetition loop. So let's briefly touch on the development side. Tokuro Fujiwara, the game designer, he said the horror elements were inspired by manga, like Devilman and amusement park ghost houses.
Which gives it that unique, frantic, gothic look. And early arcade players actually got to cheat for a little while. The initial boards had an infamous timer break bug.
A bug?
Yeah, if you used the magician's frog transformation right as you died, it could cause the timer to overflow, giving you near infinite time. Capcom patched it very quickly, and the revised version also slightly lowered the difficulty.
They took out one of the unicorns in stage 6.
That's right, quick action. And just to finalize those name changes we mentioned, the princess went from Guinevere to Prin Prin in the sequel, Dai Makaimura, and the boss, Gondius, became the Astaroth we all know.
And what's wild is that even in that chaotic Famicom port, there were still these hidden secrets.
Right, there was a complex code for stage select. If you used it to skip to stage 7, you'd start with the default spear.
Which has a much longer range than the cross.
Exactly. So fighting the final boss with the spear actually makes the battle significantly easier.
Yeah.
A hidden, weird exploit in the famously broken port.
So what does this all mean for you, the player, looking back at this legendary piece of gaming history? I think we've really recalibrated our understanding here. The original arcade Makaimura was a masterclass in this meticulously balanced high difficulty.
It demanded precision and mastery.
But the legacy of unstable and unfair difficulty that rests squarely on the shoulders of the Famicom port, all thanks to its technical flaws and those malicious design changes.
It's a remarkable case study in how implementation really affects perception. Intentional challenge demands mastery. Unintentional compromise just breeds frustration.
Absolutely. We've seen how that deliberate constraint Arthur's fixed jump, the high-stakes knockback, clashes so vividly with the chaotic imbalance of the Famicom port.